If there's a prize at the end of the rainbow, right? I mean, you're going to try and follow the rainbow. Stay away from me, Lucky Charms. Ooh, that one looks like a fun one.
This is our last question, I think. It's a long one, though, and there's a lot to it.
Okay.
You ready?
Let's do it.
So, from...
Wait. Where did you get this question from?
I got this from a comment on one of our other YouTube videos, and they said YAWA question.
Awesome. That's how you do it, folks.
So I knew it was a YAWA question.
That's how you do it.
And I really wanted to read this one for a couple of reasons. A, I thought it was really good question. And B, there was another person that said, hey, I second this question. I have these concerns as well. So, Nicholas Cooper, YAWA question. I have a 1.5-year-old Labrador Retriever. I've been training him to hunt upland, mainly pheasants. Since the management here in New York is not great, I found the stocked pheasant states like New York usually have heavier cover that is thick and at least 4 to 5 feet tall that is never cut or managed. If I plant birds and he knows I have planted them, he is fine about charging into the heavy cover. But when I take him to state-stocked hunting spots and tell him to hunt him up or get into the cover, he shuts down. Mm-hmm. He will either hunt way too close or just look at me like he can't believe that I'm asking him to do that.
Gotcha.
Please help. What should I do? And then I wanted to just read the conversation that was had by the other YouTuber, Andrew Hotzman, which is he also a patron?
I believe so. For those of you that don't know what that is, patreon.com/Standing Stone Kennels is an online training community, excuse me, that we have set up to help anybody that is, and the people that are watching our videos are typically people trying to train their dogs themselves. That is the direct link to Kat and I for assistance where you are struggling. So
he said, I'll second this. Hasn't happened to me yet, but it is a concern. About half of the stocked areas I hunt are super heavy, but the areas we are training are not. And then Nicholas said back, yeah, I think I should have trained him in the heavy stuff to start when he was a puppy, but not sure how to go about it now. He loves to hunt, but once the cover gets up to around 3 to 4 feet, he shuts down unless he knows something is in there. Also, has no problem whatsoever charging in if I throw a retrieve into the cover.
Well, that's a good thing.
And then last comment on that was a reply back from Andrew saying, I have tried to avoid this by taking walks in the insanely thick cover, but she was still very clingy. I finally got a thorn out of my leg from 3 weeks ago. So the reason that I read through this whole conversation is A, to show that this isn't some situation in question that just one person has. Other people have this question and concern as well. And to point out that if you got a thorn in your leg, there's a very good chance that your dog is going to get beat up in that thick cover too. So it is understandable if there's the potential for them avoiding that thick cover, especially when they don't know that a reward is available in there.
Yeah, you got to think about it as a sense of, if there's a prize at the end of the rainbow, right? I mean, you're going to try and follow the rainbow.
Even through the thick cover.
Even through the thick cover.
So,
Stay away from me, Lucky Charms.
So, speaking of Lucky Charms, marshmallows in cereal. Ugh. Who thought that's a good idea?
I don't remember the last time I've eaten cereal.
Whatever.
Okay, so
we digress.
To start with this, there's a few things going on there. I want to say it's not that abnormal for a dog, especially if that dog lacks experience. It's a completely normal thing for them to not want to bust into that thick cover. Okay, so don't be surprised. Now, on to the how to help. You mentioned in there, I thought maybe I should have started this training in the thick cover when they were younger. No. We need to be able to build good habits of, is it a lab?
Yes.
Okay. So starting in the thick cover wouldn't be as big of a deal. With a young pointing dog, we want to see what's going on so that we can help them. But even the lab aspect of retrievers, flushers, that aspect of things, having lighter cover is going to help be less intimidating, and then working to gradual cover is a good idea, but you have to do it gradually.
And it really comes down to experience. The more experience your dog gains and understanding that the birds are the wild birds, the birds that we're really going to be hunting when we're not training are going to be in that thicker cover. It's just experience. For example, this is a really good example. Our young dogs, we're from Kansas. We have fairly light cover, rolling hills. I mean, I don't think it gets super thick in most of
there's a few places, but I mean, it's grass.
Grasslands, knee, thigh height.
You can get a couple places here and there that are pretty thick. There are a few cattaily areas, but for the most part, generally speaking, lighter cover is compared to what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so we train in these environments. Lighter cover, thigh high cover, and our dogs have a good understanding of, hey, this is how we find birds, this is how we hunt, this is how we work a field, use the wind, yada, yada. But then we go to some place like South Dakota in those crazy thick cattail sloughs, or when you've gone up to Minnesota or Michigan in the grouse woods. We don't have grouse woods around here, guys.
No.
We have a few trees down the draw.
There was a gentleman I talked to on the phone the other day, and he said, you know what a Kansas tree is? Or he said something to the effect of, talking about he was driving on 70, so there's no trees there, there's nothing there, but basically calling telephone poles are the only trees we've got in the state of Kansas, which isn't too far from the truth. I mean, really, there's a few trees here and there.
It's not overly wooded, but we don't have those type of environments to train in, so we just have to prepare our dogs the best that we can and then take them into those environments and help them be successful there.
Correct.
And you're not going to help them be successful if you don't find birds. And that's the hard part of hunting. That's why it's called hunting, not shooting or killing.
I had a question from a patron today specifically about that. Said, well, how do I, hopefully this involves, the Patreon aspect of thing involves hunting assistance too. I said, well, yeah, happy to help. What do we got? And it's, he's struggling. We're struggling finding birds on our hunts. And I'm like, the only thing that you can do is find birds. So you got to find areas that have birds or take a trip or do something. And I will say, one good trip can make a young bird dog. One. But when you take that, but they got to get into birds. And when you take our young bird dogs, this is something I think that goes a little bit digressing, but it kind of brings full circle what's happening here. We take our young dogs, almost all of them always make the trek to go to South Dakota. And
it's important for them.
They learn a ton up there because there's just, we guide multiple days in a row. So we'll be up there. I'll be 3 days on, 1 day off, 6 days on, 1 day, 1.5 days off, and then 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, and come home. So it's a lot of days, A, and a lot of birds, B. And then the flip side of that is they kind of move into that, their prime, if you will, drastically younger in life, where a lot of people would say a 3 to 5 year old dog is in their prime. And that's just because of the amount of time it takes to get enough birds under their belt to say that you're experienced.
Yeah. And our younger dogs have more birds to gain that experience, and they learn quickly how to hunt and that they need to hunt hard and that birds are going to be found in that thick cover. And that's where they need to go to find birds.
And so we as handlers have to get in there to show them.
And that's one thing too. Some of these preserves and situations that you get into that aren't as wild-like is, they've got mowed paths and then food plot strips or heavy cover strips.
And they want you to stay out of those food plots because they get hunted so much.
They don't want them to break down. The dogs can go in there, but you guys walk on the paths. But then the dogs are only going in that thick cover.
It's easy for them to want to run the paths for sure.
Right. And so they need to learn to get into that thick cover and not just walk the paths with you. And if they're not getting into birds and they're feeling bored, they're going to think, why am I wasting my time busting brush? I just am going to walk by Dad.
Yep. And it takes drastically longer. But I've had dogs that fall into that category where they've got a pretty good idea, but they're not 100% there that, after a while, they're like, what the hell are we doing out here? I've been running for 2 hours and I haven't found a dang thing. They either kind of start mousing a little bit or, this is the less experienced dogs I'm talking about, but they start mousing a little bit or they get to that point and they're like, screw it. I'm hot. I'm tired. I'm done. just going to walk by you or whatever. So it takes the experience, and experience is the answer to fixing this issue that you're having.
Which just means you need to get out, hunt more, get into areas where the likelihood of finding birds is a little bit higher, traveling to hunt if you have the opportunity to places that are going to have a lot of birds in a smaller amount of area.
Is that all the questions we have for today?
That is all the questions that we have for today. I think. If I counted right.
Go back and count real quick before we end.